With all the madness and uncertainty currently happening in the world, it's no wonder there are many of you out there who have had some crazy run-ins with scary people. That's why on today's episode of Scary Stories, we'll be reliving and retelling your true experiences from retail. Now, before we get underway, I just wanted to give a quick shout out and a thank you to Denny Animations, who animated one of the Home Alone stories I did a few months ago. If you want to go check it out, then click the little card on the top right of the video, or by checking the link in the description below. Thanks. Now let's begin. Number 1. Robbed for toilet paper. Judging just by the title of my story, I'm pretty sure you already know where this is going, and you can assume so. This took place just a few weeks ago, when a certain global issue became a very serious problem. People were going crazy, heading to the stores, buying all the food, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, you name it. Which, if I have a second to leave my opinion, it's that those of you who are buying way more than you need, shame on you. Thank goodness, however, grocery stores are allowing the elderly to shop early. Anyways, I'm getting too off topic. Because all of the madness, I waited about a week before heading to Target so I could pick up some essentials for my grandma. Unfortunately, she's too old and brittle to be constantly moving, which was why I was doing her the favor. When I got to Target at about 7:30 a.m., there was already a line of about 25 people that were already waiting to grab what they had come for. Eventually, 8 a.m. chimes on my watch, and one by one were slowly led into the store. Of course, almost everyone went to grab toilet paper, but we were limited to one per family. I got the typical Target brand, seeing as there weren't many options. Then after I went along with the rest of my grocery shopping, I picked up some eggs, milk, orange juice, pasta, etc. Once I was about to go check out, I realized I needed to grab some toothpaste, which meant I would need to walk by the toilet paper section. As I do, I hear a man arguing with one of the employees, something about being out of toilet paper and how he would, and I quote, kill for toilet paper. It was really creepy, especially considering the tone of voice he had, which was why I decided to get involved. Look, dude, everyone had to wait in line. You don't think there are others who couldn't find what they needed? Try a different store. It's not her fault, you know, I said to this 30-ish-year-old looking man, who for whatever reason kept fiddling with something in his jacket pocket. He curses me out before he just walks away. Talk about a jerk. Either way, the employee thanked me for helping her, and I continued toward the cashier. Fast forward to after paying for all my groceries, loads of people were still pouring into Target, but I was so glad not to be dealing with those large crowds.
Hey, didn't I see you in the store not too long ago?
Someone calls out to me as I'm approaching my vehicle. It was the man who had been arguing with the Target employee, in which I had to get involved. Yeah, so what? What do you want?
Your toilet paper. Give it to me, and there won't be any issues.
No, dude, get your own. What he does next gave me the chills. It really opened my eyes to just how far some people will go for the most mundane products.
I'm not going to ask you again. Hand it over.
He takes out a revolver, and he forcefully grabs the toilet paper from my shopping cart. Honestly, what was I to do? Was it worth fighting back? I don't think so. I pretty much just stood there in shock before I finally snapped out of it and run back to the Target to inform the security guard. Fast forward a few days later, and the man was caught and arrested. It turned out this wasn't the first time he had been in trouble with the law. Even before all of this madness began, he had various brushes with the law and was connected with another series of armed robberies. So, to people who are out there shopping, be very careful with those you come into contact with. Number 2. Late night robbery. I used to work for a family-owned convenience store in the early 90s just on the outskirts of a boring little town in Arkansas. My store was located right off a quiet highway, which was right next to a 76 gas station. While it was an easy job, it was also very boring. Anyone who's ever stopped at a gas station or convenience store on a road trip, you know how incredibly quiet they can be. Well, try being the cashier. Anyways, if you ever stop at one of these locations, say hello, you'd be surprised. We're actually very friendly people. Just don't come armed and try to rob us. That wouldn't be much appreciated. Speaking of being robbed, that's what this story is more or less about. I've been working the night shift on a cold December's evening, and the last customer who had stopped to get some snacks was about an hour ago. Same thing applied for the 76. There were no vehicles stopping to fuel up, as I could see the pumps from my side window. I want to say it was a little past midnight, and I remember the static of my little TV playing a Disney movie while I sat there reading a comic book. All of a sudden, I was able to see a man looking through the front window. He was wearing all black, and he had a red bandana around his neck. He kind of reminded me of a gangster. I found his sudden presence quite alarming, but I wrote him off as he just stood there looking to be enjoying a cigarette. I guess I can't blame people looking to take a break from driving for hours on end. Fast forward about 5 to 10 minutes later, and I'm able to see a beat-up dark minivan park at the front of my convenience store. Moments later, 2 other men stepped out of the van wearing similar attire to the gentleman I'd just seen a bit earlier. As I focused my attention toward the 3, they put their bandanas over their faces and walk into my store, each brandishing a pistol.
This is a robbery. Put your hands up and don't you dare move.
One of the men demands, as they see me clenching onto the store phone, the one I was about to use to call authorities.
You there, open up the cash register and give us the money that's in there. Make it quick, or you're dead.
In total, I believe there is about $500 to $600, which didn't seem to fuel their appetite for money. While 2 of the men were grabbing the scratcher tickets, the one who had given me the instructions asks me if we had a safe with even more cash. We did, and I was hoping he wouldn't ask, because I didn't know the combination. Only the store owner knew that information, and he wasn't here. Yes, we do, but the thing is, I don't know the combination.
That's no problem. Where is it? Show me.
I then walked this masked man to the back room, all the while I'm hoping somebody would come to my rescue. That never did happen. Instead, he fires a couple of rounds into the safe's lock, which ended up opening it with ease. Even I had no clue there was so much money in there, easily about $5,000. Anyways, once they're satisfied, they tell me to stay in the back room until the front doorbell chimed. If I was to even take a peek, they told me they would splatter my brains all over the place. Again, what choice did I have? I waited until I heard that noise, and then I waited an extra 5 more minutes until I had the courage to take a peek into the store. It was a complete and utter mess, but thankfully, the 3 were long gone. Now, how in the world the cashier at the gas station didn't hear any of the commotion is still beyond me, because he never came to check up until the police arrived 30 minutes later. To this day, I never did find out what happened to those 3 men. Whether they were caught remains a mystery that still haunts me, even till this very day. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Before we continue, I want to take this opportunity to thank my channel members, Robbie, Bo, Kim, Spunky the Nutcase, Tabitha, Ingrid, Evil's Girl, Corey Shonemon, and our newest members, Zombie Mama, Haiti McDaniel, and Benjamin Wilcox. If you'd like to help support what I do here, along with getting early video access and a shout out, then check out the channel memberships option. It's right next to where it says subscribe. Anyways, let's continue. Number 3. Hallmark Intruder. Anybody else remember the Hallmark stores? The ones that sold the Beanie Babies, birthday cards, flowers, and other various products? Man, there used to be so many of them. What happened? Well, if you remember the Hallmark stores, you're the real MVP, because they're so incredibly hard to find these days. Now, since I heard the Creepy Fox is doing a stories video on scary retail experiences, I thought what better way to be part of this amazing video than by sharing my story. So I take you back with me to the mid-2000s when I was just 22 years old and working at Hallmark. It was only about 6 months into my employment I was offered to become the manager. No kidding. Not only would I get a bump in my pay grade, but more hours ensured more money in my pocket, which ensured my bills would get paid. If there was one downside, however, it's that I was in charge of a lot more than a regular employee, but it didn't take me too long to get accustomed. Along with my role as a manager, I was also head of customer complaints. I can't tell you how many times I'd be working out in the store, helping out during our peak season, only for a customer to cuss me out, then ask to speak to the manager. How funny, their expressions would change when I revealed I was the manager. Now, while most of these complaints had to do with our return policy, there were the very rare instances of creeps. Once we had some dude confess his love for one of the cashiers, who we'll call Emma, because he was saying she was the girl of his dreams. But as awkward as it was for me to tell him this wasn't the time and place, there was another instance that really tops my list. It was around closing on a weekday, and the 2 employees working with me that evening had already went home. This left just myself closing up the shop. As I was locking up the cash register, a man stumbles into the store. He wore torn-up clothing, and he looked as if he hadn't bathed in days. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're actually closed. You're gonna have to come back tomorrow if you're interested in purchasing something." Now, in case you're wondering why I hadn't closed the front door, it's because I had just come back from throwing the trash away. Also, I had the open sign switched to closed. I know that's not really a deterrent for people to enter, but I wasn't really thinking. I guess I was more focused on getting home and entering the bathtub to wash the stress away from a long and frustrating day. Anyways, the man was holding a brown paper bag, which appeared to have some sort of alcoholic beverage, which, along with his movement, allowed me to make the assumption that he was drunk.
Hey, gorgeous. Want to go into the back of the store? No one will hear us.
He then let out a creepy laugh as he starts to approach me, talking in a sing-songy type voice. "Sir, you need to leave, or I'm going to have to call the police on you." What I remember him saying moments later was truly chilling.
They're not going to get here in time.
I let out a nervous laugh as he reveals a pocket knife from one of his boots. Instinctively, I hit the store's alarm, and then I run into the back room. All the while, he's chasing me, and then he starts pounding on the door I just locked on him. I'm able to see this from the door's small window, mind you. Anyways, while I watched him attempt to break the window, I was already on the phone with the police department, shaking with pure adrenaline. Those next 3 to 5 minutes felt like an eternity. But luckily, the police department is less than a quarter of a mile away from the shopping center. When officers entered the store, there was a small standoff between them and the creep. The nice thing was it ended without anybody getting hurt. Well, if you count a taser being used, then that might not count. Nevertheless, I was finally able to exit the back room and talk with the police regarding my chilling experience. I never did see that man again, and it's safe to assume, well, at least I hope so, that he's since gotten help. Number 4. Ex-Boyfriend's Revenge. I'm honestly so surprised by the fact that there are so many people who have had scary encounters with creepy people. It's actually only been about a week since I discovered this scary stories community here on YouTube, and in a way it's therapeutic to know I'm not the only one who's had to deal with creepy scenarios. As such, I just watched a video you did some time ago on retail stories, and what do you know, you're doing another one. What a better fit than with my story here. For some context, I used to work for a small organic juice store from 2007 to 2009. The best comparison to my store would be something like Jamba Juice. Anyways, about a year into my employment, I ended my 5-year relationship with my then boyfriend, who we're going to call Chad. Yes, I'm only calling him Chad because of the meme. Sorry. Chad had cheated on me, and to add the icing to the cake, he begged me not to leave him. As if I was just going to accept his behavior as normal and my life would return to the fullest. Nope. This meant that for the following set of weeks, he would keep trying to contact me any way he could. First, it was by phone call, and wow, what he told me was super creepy. In summary, it was about how he would come after my family while they were sleeping, kill them, before he went after me, and then ending it all there. It was some sort of twisted idea that had become very over the edge. That's why I had called the authorities on him, but he said it was just a joke, and he didn't truly mean it. Whatever the case was, I filed a restraining order on him, and he was to never contact me again, though he did try on social media to apologize, but I blocked him there too. Of course, if it were just to be as simple as that, I could end my submission here and go on with the rest of my day, but I'm afraid it's not that simple. So anyways, back to my store. The shift I had this day on a random Tuesday had me closing the store by myself. I'd done so previously many times, and I actually enjoyed it. I guess it acted as a transition from the hectic day to calm my nerves so I could go home to my amazing dogs and relax on the couch. Anyways, I was moments from exiting through the front when I see a familiar vehicle pull up into the parking space I was facing. It was my ex-boyfriend. Without any sort of hesitation, I locked the door from the inside as he attempts to open it seconds later. "Chad, what are you doing here? You already know the restraining order says you have to be at least 300 feet away from me. That includes being on the other side of the glass door too," I assure him, with my voice being filtered by the glass in front of me. I wasn't able to hear what he said next. Instead, I saw his lips move, as if he was whispering something to himself, before, no kidding, he takes out a familiar-looking handgun. It was his grandfather's 1911. I know so because he had shown it to me when we were together. I froze with fear, a type of fear I can only describe of when you're faced with your worst nightmare, because he points the 1911 at the glass-paneled window beside me, and then he fires a couple of shots. That glass completely shattered, but by that point, I'm already booking it to the back room, where I locked myself in there. He then began pounding on the large and heavy metal door, while I sat in a corner calling 911. All of this is spanning in less than 30 seconds, mind you. By some miracle, a couple of police officers who were having dinner across the way at the Burger King that's in the same shopping center just so happened to have heard the gunshots, so they come running over to my rescue. Thank goodness Chad surrendered without any other altercation, and he was quickly disarmed and handcuffed. After a quick trial, he was arrested and put behind bars for good. I've never seen him again since. I guess in part because I've moved across the country, and I've even changed my name. By the way, this scary experience hasn't stopped me from living life to the fullest. In fact, I'm happily married, and I have 2 wonderful children. Number 5. Modern Warfare 2 Robber. I'm sure by now you've heard plenty of scary stories when it comes to working at video game stores. And yes, almost all of them are true. Trust me, this is coming from a former video game store employee. Now, with that said, does anyone remember the good old days of 2009? All aboard the hype train for Modern Warfare 2, they said. It would be the greatest installment in the series, they said. Sure, I guess you could make that argument. But along with the groundbreaking features and the hype of that year's E3 conference, it also created a lot of impatience among the gaming community. Mostly because there were retailers and small shops like mine that were breaking the release date, and they were letting customers purchase early copies. I guess anybody who works in the video game industry knows that this is a huge rule to break, and if you're caught, forget about being fired. That's the least of your concern. I've actually heard stories about former video game store employees, heck, Even the managers being hit with hefty fines. But what happens when you don't give someone a copy by choice? Rather, if you don't hand over a copy, that's it for you. That's me putting it lightly. So, where do I begin? Ah, yes, I know, the store I was working at. It was a now defunct family-owned video game store called Games for Plus, your go-to for shopping, all things retro. No, I promise that wasn't the slogan. Okay, maybe it was. Anyways, we sold video game consoles from the 80s and the 90s. You wanted a Sega console with an original copy of Sonic? We had you covered. But don't let the nostalgia fool you. We also sold modern games and even upcoming releases. The owner even threw a pizza party for about 30 people who showed up when we had the Super Smash Bros. Brawl Midnight release. That was actually pretty fun, and I remember the tournament we threw with the grand prize winner getting $500. Sadly, I placed in third place, but I did get a free copy of the game, which was pretty sweet. Anywho, fast forward to 2009. It's a week before Modern Warfare 2 was to release, and of course we got plenty of people who came in to ask if we had the game in stock. I had to tell each of these individuals I was not allowed to confirm whether or not we had the game, even though it had been there for about a week. Out of about 100 people who came in to ask, there might have been about 3 who yelled at me before calling me a bunch of vulgarities. But yes, what this submission is truly about. That one guy, the one who took his video game obsession a little too far. I think it was 3 days before release date, and I was on the closing shift with one other employee. I actually remember training her as I'd become the assistant manager by that point. When we were about to lock up, a man sporting full-on tattoo sleeves and tattoos on his neck and face wearing large sunglasses walked into our store, and he asked if we had Modern Warfare 2. I had to tell him it would be available in 3 days, and he all about loses it.
I've been going from town to town and everyone's been telling me the same thing over and over again. I'm tired of this. If you don't give me a copy, I'll take copies by force.
The employee that I was training, who we're going to call Rebecca, was visibly shaking from the man's anger, but that would be the least of our concern. The dude seriously takes out a handgun, and he demands we show him to the back room, where we kept the copies of the game. Rebecca let out a squeal, which ended up angering the robber.
Oh, be quiet, or I'll make sure you never speak again.
I try to calm the man down by telling him I will get him some copies from the back, as long as he lets Rebecca go. He insisted we both show him to the back, most likely because he didn't want one of us running off to get help or calling authorities. Once we're in the back room where we keep all the extra stock, he snatches about 4 copies of Modern Warfare 2 before staring at Rebecca and I and stating,
You two didn't see anything. If I find out you ratted me out, I'll come back for you and I'll finish the job.
He then runs out of the store and we quickly book it to the phone to call for help. Thankfully, the dude was easily recognizable, and with the security footage, he was caught and arrested just a few days later. That's essentially all there was to the story. Rebecca ended up quitting, most likely because of that frightful evening, which I can't really blame her for. And I worked there for another 6 months before I left for a job at Costco, where I'm currently the manager, by the way. As for Games for Plus, it closed in 2015 due to poor sales. It's quite sad, to be honest. I miss those days. Not the one where we got robbed, but when we would have the community nights with customers. Anyone else out there have a story from working at gaming shops? It'd be great to hear from you in the comments section. Either way, stay safe, everyone. Number 6. Security Guard at Ross. I used to work as a security guard for a Ross clothing store from 2014 to 2016. It was my first ever job working in retail. It was pretty interesting to say the least. Petty crimes like shoplifters were always my favorite to deal with because they knew they were caught red-handed. but they'd always come up with the most lame excuses. My personal favorites include, "Well, I thought these were free samples," and "Can't you just let this one slide just this once?" Maybe if it were like a candy bar, whatever. I mean, I think Ross can go without a bar of Twix. But jewelry? Come on. And yes, before you begin, I understand that jewelry at Ross isn't exactly the most fancy, but they are one of the more expensive products we sell. But okay, enough diddle-daddling around. Let's get on to my scary experience. It was a random Friday night, which were our busiest days. And I was in the break room enjoying the Subway sandwich I purchased just earlier before my shift. As I chowed down on my bacon ranch melt, an employee walks into the break room, looking like she was in panic. "Hey, are you okay, dude? What's up?" "No, there are some guests fighting. I know you're on break, but could you please help us out?" I mean, that's what I was being paid for, right? Not only preventing shoplifters, but ensuring everyone was civil. I sighed in disappointment knowing my sandwich would once again get cold as I licked the ranch off of my fingers and then grabbed my little baton. To be quite frank, there's not really any point to it. The thing wouldn't even do much damage to anyone. But hey, it was a nice reassurance. Anyways, thinking I would have to break up a fight between two mothers arguing over the last pair of shoes, I'm surprised to see it's two adult males. These dudes were huge. If I was the NFL commissioner, I would have instantly signed them up just by their stature alone. Unfortunately, this meant that if I would have to get involved, I was sort of at a disadvantage. Now, I'm not that short. I'm 6 foot and weigh around 220 pounds. But these dudes were easily between 6'3" to 6'5", 240 to 260 pounds. Anyways, I tried to ask what it was they were arguing about, but they ignored me and started duking it out. By now, one of the employees was on the phone with police, and I started to advise people to stay back. That would be the least of our concern. The guy who was clearly winning decided, which to this very day frightens me, to take out a handgun and then starts waving it at the guy and the rest of the crowd. They surely didn't pay me enough for that. He basically curses out the man who was on the ground, saying he'll settle this on another day and how he had gotten off lucky. One of the women who had been begging the man to stop, who by now I was guessing was the wife, walks off with the armed man. At that point, my number one concern was ensuring the safety of those in the store, and the man who had basically gotten his behind handed over to him. Once EMTs and officers arrived, they took our statements, and they made sure to check up on everyone. A week or so later, we ended up learning more information. Apparently, the man and the wife duo, which had been confirmed to us, had seen this man, who turned out to be the wife's ex. They got into an argument, and then a fight, and so on, pistol being involved. You get the idea. From the last I heard, the dude with the pistol got arrested. So that was the Ross incident all of my friends asked me to share. If you're listening to this, friends, I hope you enjoyed hearing it again through the voice of the Creepy Fox. Which, by the way, make sure to subscribe to the dude. He's been slept on for way longer than he needs to be. Plus, he's really talented, and he deserves way more recognition. Number 7. Grandma was packing. I used to work at Walmart as a part-time gig during my years in college, and during my time with the company, I had my fair share of creepy encounters with scary people. While most instances involved angry customers not being able to find what they're looking for, or yelling at you for something that's not your fault, you have those rare instances where truly you're left going, well, I sure didn't expect that. Now, while I can go into great detail of these rowdy customers, I want to instead focus on this one specific incident. Now, with that out of the way, I guess I should start by saying I typically worked from Thursday to Sunday in the evenings. This was to accommodate my school schedule, which luckily Walmart was able to work around. I will give them props for something. Anyways, as for what I actually did, I was a store greeter, those employees that stand in the front entrance and welcome you into the store. Again, nothing too special. During one of my shifts, while I greeted customers, I noticed an older woman, late 60s, early 70s, who was having a difficult time pushing her shopping cart out of the store. Now, normally I don't leave my position unless it's break time or I'm off the clock, but I felt bad seeing her struggling. Luckily, I see my manager who was just beginning to make her way toward me, and I ask her if I could help out the woman. She gladly accepts, and she tells me to take my time while she covered for me with greeting customers. That was another plus about the Walmart I worked at. The manager was super chill. We're actually still friends today. Anyways, I walk up to the woman with a smile over my face, and I say, "Excuse me, ma'am, but I'd love to help you with getting your groceries to your car. Mind if I help you?" You should have seen the smile across her face. Bless her heart. She was very thankful for the offer, and she gave me a hug just like that. Super sweet of her. We start making her way toward her vehicle while she started telling me how much I reminded her of her granddaughter, always smiling and helping out any way she could. Something about those words still resonates with me today. Once we're at the vehicle, she opens the trunk and I start putting in the groceries. About 10 to 20 seconds later, while I was distracted, I heard footsteps approaching. Now, since it was already past 8 p.m. in November, it's clearly dark, so it was sort of difficult to see anyone. Thinking it was just another customer, I tried not to mind it. But then, I heard the old woman let out a sudden gasp. I quickly turned my attention toward the sounds, accidentally bumping my head on the inside of the trunk. That's where I see a man wearing a hoodie. He was brandishing a knife. He started asking the woman to hand over her purse. Seeing this brought a chill down my spine, as it reminded me of an incident I had when I was younger. It also involved a man with a knife, who made off with my purse. Deja vu much? Well, Grandma, which is what I'm going to call her from this point on, wasn't about to hand over her purse, as she downright refused. She even went as far as to say if the guy was smart enough, he would just leave. I'll give her points for standing up to the robber, but let's be serious for a second. The guy has a knife. There's only so much bravery you can display until it gets you into trouble. Well, little did I know that Grandma here was a proud owner of a small revolver. She takes it out of her purse, causing the creep to freeze in place. Suddenly, that confident smirk the man was displaying turned into one of panic, as without saying anything else, he books it out of that parking lot, never to be seen again. I remember going, "Wow, that was amazing," to which she responded with a simple, "Good people always win." Again, bless her heart. Once we were settled, she gives me a hug, and she even offers to give me $20, but I told her I wasn't allowed to accept any money. She accepts my answer, and then she just leaves shortly after. As for the creep, I returned back to Walmart, where I let the manager and the security guard know, but nothing ever came up of it. And part of me likes to hope that Grandma scared him so good that he decided to change his ways. Number 8. Saved by a Marine. Just a quick note before I begin. This is a notice to anyone who likes someone. If the person you're in love with doesn't reciprocate the same emotions and feelings, then leave it at that. Move on with your life. There are plenty of fish out there in the sea. I'm not trying to sound rude or mean, but I just don't want to sugarcoat it. Anyways, there is a reason to why I'm even mentioning that, because this involves a similar incident. For quick context, I'm female, and I used to work for a well-known gaming retailer in the late 2000s. Also, I was around 19 years old. Now, while this industry sees a nice mix of both males and females, back during this era, it was male-dominated. This meant that I unfortunately had to deal with a lot of creeps that would try to hit on me. Now, no, this isn't going to be me bashing people. In fact, in a way I should be thanking those creeps. Sounds sort of strange. but it has allowed me to build up a thick skin and confidence anytime some jerk tries to give me a hard time. Anyways, one day as I worked with a fellow sales associate, a man walks into the store. He looked to be in his early 40s. He was overweight with some acne on his cheeks, and he had some stubble and long brown hair. I, being the good person I am, greets him with a friendly smile, and then I ask him if he needed any assistance. All he said back was he was here to pick up a copy of Halo 3, which by that point had already been out for a month. So I go ahead and start with the transaction. Meanwhile, I remember my coworker heading to the back so he could use the restroom.
Hey, so now that he's gone, I thought I'd go ahead and ask you, are you seeing anyone at the moment?
Appalled by the sudden question, I ignore it and tell him how much he owed.
Oh, maybe you didn't hear me correctly. I asked you, are you seeing anyone right now?
I tell him no, which looking back, maybe I should have said yes. Then he gets the biggest, creepiest grin over his face.
What time do you get off of work? Maybe you'd like to go grab some dinner with me. Then we could play some Halo together.
I assured him I wasn't interested, but he kept insisting and insisting. Got so bad I could see him start to shake, but not from nerves, but from anger and frustration. Still, he kept his cool, and then he leaves once he sees my coworker return. He had no idea to the strange altercation I'd just gone through, which is why I catch him up on it. He finds it strange, but we write it off as a one-time deal. If only it were that simple. Fast forward a couple of days later, and the same guy returns. This time he's dressed sharply. He was holding some roses and a teddy bear. The dude actually waited in line behind 3 other customers, and then when it was his turn, he told my coworker he wanted to wait for the pretty girl. His words, not mine. I sorta stood there awkwardly when I heard that statement, but as I was currently helping a customer, there wasn't really much I could do. Eventually he approaches me, and of all things, he confesses his love.
You're the most beautiful girl I've ever met. Please accept these tokens of my appreciation.
My coworker, along with a couple of the customers, just looked at the dude like, seriously, you're old enough to be your dad. What's wrong with you? Well, try being in my shoes. I told him I couldn't accept any gifts, but he just continues. At this point, my manager is just coming out of the back room from his lunch break, and he sees the commotion. There is then a back and forth between my admirer and the manager that sees them get into an argument. It actually almost got physical, but thankfully it didn't come to that. As for the roses and the teddy bear, he takes them with him, and he storms out of the store. By now, I'm really starting to feel uncomfortable, but I sucked it up and went about the rest of my shift. A couple of months passed, and I hadn't seen the creepy admirer. I started to believe that he finally had gotten the hint. He had moved on to someone else. I surely had long forgotten him, and I expected life would be peaceful, but I would be wrong. One evening, I was working the closing shift, and I had been left by myself the last hour, as my coworker wasn't feeling well. No issue since it had been a slow evening anyways, and I was enjoying listening to the sounds of the rain hitting the window. 20 or so minutes before I would begin to lock up, a familiar face shows up to the store. Remember my creepy secret admirer? Yep, he was here, and this time he wasn't going to leave without me. I'm not even able to get a single phrase out of my mouth as he walks up to the front desk and he tries to climb over it to get to me. I'm all but freaking out as I tell him to knock it off, but this guy was determined. Just as quickly as he made his way over, I decided my best course of action was to run out of the store and get the security guard who patrols the nearby jewelry store. Before I can get to the security guard, however, I ended up bumping into another man and falling on my butt. Hey, are you okay? Don't tell me you're closed. I need to buy a Pokemon game for my son. It's his birthday tomorrow. I am all but shaking with panic and fear, but at the same time, I'm thanking the heavens someone could help me. Moments later, the creep runs out of the store and he starts to approach me.
Come back, honey. What are you doing talking to other men?
I was disgusted. I quickly explained to this man that I didn't even know him and that he was stalking me. I was honestly expecting him not to care and be like, well, I don't see how that's my problem. Deal with it. Instead, he approaches my stalker, and then he tells him to knock it off. That only angers him more. He actually takes out a small blade from his pocket, and then he tries going after the dad, who was here for the Pokemon game. Little did Creeper know, he was in for quite the shock. Not only does Pokemon Dad disarm him, but he puts him into a pretty painful arm hold. I used this opportunity to go get the security guard, who luckily was working that evening. Both Pokemon Dad and security guard were able to detain this creep until police arrived. In the end, I filed a restraining order, and I also learned that Pokemon Dad was in the Marines. That might explain how he was able to take control of the situation so easily. Number 9. The Masked Intruders. I think I've more or less listened to every single one of your videos, but one thing I've noticed is they span within the past 20 or so years. About 90% of the stories take place from the year 2000 up to this present time. Then you've got the other 9% that sometimes take place in the 90s and the 80s. But I don't think I've ever heard one from the 1970s, so I guess that means I'm one of the first. This takes place during the summer of my senior year of high school, which puts us back at 1977. I was working at a small retail surf shop in Southern California. It was actually my very first job, and I remember it well because it's where I met my wife, and we're still happily married to this day. But along with the romance comes a very real and very scary encounter. It was in the middle of the day, and the store had been relatively empty, which I blamed on the random July rainstorm we had received. While I sat looking at a magazine and listening to the radio, I began to hear police sirens. Seemed as if there was a police chase, but little did I know my involvement. Out of nowhere, a car tumbles into one of our outdoor displays, and moments later, step 2 men in ski masks, holding MAC-10s and holding large bags. You can imagine I'm sitting there thinking, did I miss some sort of memo? Is there a movie being filmed I wasn't aware of? All joking aside, these 2 enter the store, and they tell me to get out. Why they didn't use me as negotiation material is beyond me, but I'm thankful they weren't looking to hurt any bystanders. Anyways, I do as they say, and I'm met with about 6 police cruisers. I pointed out the armed men, and they surround the place. After about an hour, with SWAT arriving, the 2 surrendered, and they were arrested. It was later relayed to me that the 2 had robbed a bank, and they led police on a wild chase. That's when their vehicle runs out of gas, and they make their way into my surf shop. So, hands down, scariest experience of my life. Before we get to the final story, I just wanted to go ahead and give you all a quick reminder. If you're ever looking for extra content, whether it be art, previews, or sneak peeks, then make sure to follow me over on my Instagram, @TheCreepyFoxOfficial. Thanks, I'll see you there. But for now, let's get on to our final entry. Number 10. He tried to take me by force. Just a quick fourth wall break here. It's the Creepy Fox speaking. Before I get into this submission, I just wanted to clarify that this is an older story. It's one that I featured in a video from about 2 years ago. Since I no longer have that video uploaded, I wanted to go ahead and include this story for all you new listeners. Also, it is a bit long, but trust me, when you've heard all the context and you get to the end, you're going to be left in quite a shock. Either way, I hope you enjoy it. This occurred roughly 2 years ago, on of all days, my 28th birthday. I was currently employed at a tiny, double-sided drive-thru only coffee stand, roughly 30 minutes outside of Seattle. I'd been there for about a year up to that point, and I was always scheduled to work the closing shift on weekdays and the morning shift on weekends. In my 7-year career of barista work, I had never experienced anything as scary and downright frightening as this encounter. To be honest with all of you, I'll go as far as to say I would never wish this on my worst enemy. Anyways, it was a Thursday evening, approximately 7:15 p.m. I was just in the process of closing a bit early, as it was very rare to get any customers at this hour. To my surprise, when I looked up from cleaning one of the machines, I can see a customer walk up to the open window, just smiling at me. For safety reasons, I avoid all walk-up customers whenever it gets dark, but since he was facing me directly, I kind of had no choice but to acknowledge his presence. "Hi there, can I take your order, sir?" I reluctantly asked, sighing under my breath. He goes to introduce himself as Ivan. He was more or less around my age. He was dressed sharp, had a clean-cut look, but if there was only one thing, it was his accent, which made his English that much more difficult to understand. Oh, and also, his eyes. Something about them just made me feel utterly unnerved. It's that feeling I can best describe, of when you're on a plane and there's sudden turbulence. Just all in all, unsettling. Immediately, alarm bells began ringing in my head, but I couldn't put any reasoning behind it. After welcoming him, I began to prepare the coffee machine so I could use it to make his drink. The only thing was, he was unsure of what he wanted to order. That's why I asked him more than once what I could get started for him. After some awkward silence, I began to connect the pieces of the puzzle, so to speak. He wasn't here to order coffee. Eventually, he totally disregarded ordering, and instead he began with small talk. He asked me the typical creeper questions, such as where I was from, how long I've been working here, etc., etc. I answered with the most boring and mundane answers I could give, hoping this would be enough for him to walk away. But instead, after some more awkward silence, he then asks me,
"So, do you have a boyfriend?"
"No, I don't." By now, I've had more than enough with this conversation, which is why I use the excuse of closing up the shop to get back to my business. After announcing this fact, he walks away from my window before saying he looked forward to seeing me again in the future. Roughly a minute goes by, and I can no longer see him. Still, my senses were telling me that he might be out there waiting. That's why I carefully and quietly close up the stand, lock the doors and windows, and then make my way over to my vehicle. Fast forward to the next day at work, and I've pretty much forgotten my encounter with Ivan. It was another typical shift that goes by uneventfully, serving customers, and it was fast approaching 7 p.m. I was in the process of closing up the shop, as well as the register, when for just a brief moment, now I'm talking very brief moment, my eyes catch movement from outside the window on the opposite side of the stand. Naturally, I turned my head toward the window in question, and there, in perfect view of the security cameras, stood a man. Guess who? Yep, same guy from the previous evening. Once again, I got that feeling of instant doom in my stomach, and I could feel a cold breeze over my shoulder. He smiled at me with a creepy grin, waved, and then began opening and closing the window in front of him. Although he didn't do it in an aggressive manner, there was just something about it that made me feel helpless and very unsafe. Once I snapped back into reality, I expressed to the man that I was actually just off the clock and I couldn't serve him.
"That's no problem with me. I didn't come here for the coffee. I'm here for you,"
he says, with his eyes beating into mine like a strong laser beam. Once I hear that statement, I noticed a change in the energy between the two of us. That fear I've been mentioning turned into DEFCON 5. "Look, dude, I could care less what you're here for. It's gonna have to wait until tomorrow. I already told you anyways. I'm closed, and I want to go home," I sternly expressed, using my fear to feel my disgust and anger. At that point, he laughs, before he raises both his hands in a manner of surrender, before saying,
"Okay, fine. You win. That's fair enough."
That creepy smile then disappeared, and his eyes became even more focused.
Well, since you're closed, I'll just see you tomorrow then.
The way he said it wasn't so much like a typical statement you would expect from typical friends. Instead, it was more like a threat. Anyways, he then walks out of my line of sight, with me rushing over to the window and slamming it shut moments after. Once again, despite not being able to get a visual on him, my senses were telling me he was out there. I could feel those creepy beady eyes pressed against my back. Regardless of what I was feeling, I quickly leave the coffee stand and get back to my car, and I drive home again. This time, however, I was reminded of the incident for the rest of the evening, which meant any sleep I was looking forward to getting wasn't going to happen. The following morning was a Saturday, and as I mentioned in my intro, I have to get up very early to open. I'm talking about 5 a.m. open time. This meant I arrived roughly 10 minutes early to get started, and for the first few hours, my shift goes by uneventfully. 8:30 arrives, and the sun is already risen, and it's no longer freezing. As I was admiring the sky, I see a familiar truck pull up to the stand. I noticed it was my ex, Jonathan. I found this odd, as he and I didn't exactly end on the best of terms, especially considering he decided to sleep with somebody else while he was still living in the apartment I had been renting. Once he pulled up to the window, I asked him what in the world he was doing there. "Look, I understand I'm the last person you want to see. Trust me, I get it. But I wanted to stop by and wish you a happy birthday, and I wanted to see how you were doing." Just as I was about to thank him, and indeed tell him he wasn't someone I wanted to see, I noticed somebody roughly 100 yards away, approaching the stand on foot. It was Ivan. All of a sudden, Jonathan's presence there at the stand went from unwanted to please, forget everything I said to you before, and stay here with me. I whispered to Jonathan that I needed him to stay here, even if another customer arrives, at least until the man who just walked up had left. Stay. I don't think I had to say anything else, because my sudden shift in posture and facial expression more or less said it all. Anyways, I turned to face the open window on the opposite side of the stand, just as Ivan approached it. Right away, I was able to see he had been crying. His eyes were all red, and tears were still noticeable on his cheeks. Not paying attention to his obvious meltdown, I began to inform him he needed to leave because I didn't want to serve him.
"I don't need this anymore. You can have it as a gift,"
he said, interrupting my panic-induced rant. In front of me was a Russian passport. I picked it up with a puzzled look, and then I asked him why in the world I would want something as important as this.
"I just don't need it anymore."
Okay, but this is a passport. You've got to be kidding me if you're just tossing it around like it's trash. You do realize how important having this with you is, right? This isn't some sort of game, I say to myself in my head. I looked over to Jonathan, expecting to see him laugh at my obvious stalker's obsession blooming right in front of me. But he's got a look across his face that read, "What's this all about?" When I look back at Ivan, I realize he's no longer standing at the window. I poke my head outside to see where he might have walked off to, and I notice he's making his way around the corner toward the back end of my stand. I watch him walking around the stand in 3 full loops before he finally stopped again at the open window. This is the point when the situation starts to change. All of a sudden, it's like a switch flipped in his head because he stopped crying. His tears were now replaced with pure insanity.
"The Lord talked to me in my dreams last night. He told me you will be my wife. You are my wife."
A sickening smile then creeps over his face as my stomach drops.
"You are my wife, and you will come with me now."
As soon as he finished that sentence, he began to climb his way onto the small ledge beneath the window, and he attempted to make his way in. Realizing what he was doing, I quickly slammed the window shut, locking it for added measure. He then pushes his weight back down off a ledge, pausing briefly, and once again staring. Now, before I continue any further, let me just explain that until you personally experience a situation that activates your fight or flight response, you have no idea what that response will ultimately be. It's purely involuntary. So to all of you who leave comments of how you would do better in the situation, I dare you for just a second to be in my shoes. I honestly don't care how tough you are, male or female. Anyways, until this point in time, I always considered myself as the fight type of individual. Turns out I wasn't. By this point, I've already called 911, and I was doing to the best of my ability to give as much information as I possibly could to the operator, all the while attempting to keep an eye on Ivan, who was now at the back door, attempting to figure out the numbered key code combination to release the electronic lock. As I spoke to the operator, I could hear the beeping of the keys being pressed. Knowing that it would be nearly impossible for him to guess the right combination, I started to relax my mind, knowing I was safe. That was until I hear the distinct sound of the keypad indicating a successful code entry, followed by the loud, heavy sound of the steel deadbolt returning back into the door and unlocking it. In that very moment, time seemed to have frozen indefinitely. As I turned around, I could see a large knife enter through the opening door first, followed by Ivan's hand, which had been firmly grasping it. Remembering I had Jonathan waiting in his vehicle just a few feet from where I was standing, I make my way to the window, and I scream through the closed and locked panel of glass. "Jonathan, he's got a knife." Jonathan's eyes suddenly lit up, and he literally flew out of the driver's seat like Superman, and he heads towards the back door of the stand. When I turn to face the back door, I see Ivan step into the stand, where he's just a mere 10 feet from where I stood. To this very day, even as I write this up to you, I'll never forget the look in his eyes. It was very clear as day. He knew I was helpless, and this sudden feel of power only gave him that much more confidence. Ivan then takes a couple of steps toward me, before I see an arm being thrown around his neck from behind him. While I stood there frozen in shock, I see Jonathan pull Ivan back with so much force, he literally flew back. Moments later, Ivan and Jonathan are on the ground right outside the door, with Jonathan securing Ivan in a nearly impossible headlock to break away from. He then instructed Ivan not to move. To everyone's shock, he remains completely still. Jonathan then kicks the knife away from his reach, and he told me to pick it up until cops arrived. Once he made that statement, I remembered I was still on the phone with 911, who I hadn't realized had been listening in to the entire ordeal. That's why they dispatched every available unit they had in a 30-mile radius. To this day, I have never seen so many cops dispatched to one single incident. 6 officers descended on Ivan, finally detaining him and carrying him away into a waiting police vehicle. Apparently, as Ivan spoke to the officers, he kept telling them that I was his wife. He was simply there, and I quote, to collect what he had been promised in his dreams. Hey everybody, what is going on? It is the Creepy Fox wanting to say thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Make sure to leave a comment telling me what you all thought. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it. That way you know whenever I upload a video, it's gonna go, hey, there's a new video, go check it out. But hey, I'm back in the outro again. Hey there. I kind of didn't have enough time on the last video to do an outro, but that's why I'm back this time to respond to your comments, as well as let you all know what's up with me, as well as some cool little shout outs that I wanted to let you all know about. But yes, just like I mentioned in the intro, Denny Animations, an awesome channel, actually ended up animating one of the stories that I did back in November. It was a Home Alone story, and the cool thing is Denny Animations is actually working right now on 3 more animations. So if you enjoy that animation, look forward to another one, and another one, and another one, because there's more on the way. and I'm super excited for all of you to see how they turn out. I also wanted to go ahead and say thank you, and I mean it. Thank you to all the channel members who have been donating, all the channel members that have been checking out the channel memberships. We're up to 11 now. It's crazy. Just a week ago, we were only at like 7, and we went up just like that. So thank you. It goes a long way, especially right now with being furloughed and not really having much revenue coming in. It's tough. So any support, like I said, any support right now is truly appreciated. You can check out the channel memberships. You can check out the merch. Any way you want to support me, it goes a long way. It's very greatly appreciated too. But okay, I think you've heard enough of that. I think I know what you all want. It's time, once again, there's the chair, to go with Comments with Creepy, where I go back to the previous video and we go ahead and discuss and look over the stories you all left me. And by stories, I totally meant comments. Remember, we're doing this live. We don't like to do this all professionally because when we do it unedited and unscripted, it makes things that much more interesting and that much more fun. Okay, so I got tired of holding the camera up for so long, and it's heavier than I thought. So here we have a comment from JC, and it says, "Your stories get better and better, as does the artwork. The fact that they're brand new makes them well worth waiting for. Stay safe, Foxy." So I'm really glad you like the artwork. That's the cool thing with the channel is I stopped doing the stock images. Actually, somebody asked me that, like, why I switched the artwork, which is weird because it's been changed since last January. But I did it just because, you know, I got tired of using stock images and I wanted to have custom art for each video. So that's why each video has, well, as you've been able to see, different artwork. Ooh, here's one of our channel members, Evil's Girl. Woohoo! I made the subscribers shoutouts. This made my day. I love you, Creepy Fox. Aw, I love you too. You're one of my favorites. I'm just so bummed about Disney closing down. I was hoping to get lucky and meet you when I finally make it back to visit Disneyland, since I wasn't able to go because of recovering from cancer and chemotherapy. But hopefully when things get better and this craziness calms down, you'll be back at Disney. Hope all is well, and please stay awesome. You as well, Evil's Girl, you as well. Like I said, thank you so much for the love back to you as well. I'm really looking forward to meeting you, so when you're there at the park, come say hello. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to say hello. Hey, and another channel member, Tabitha. I legit was just binge listening to your videos while cleaning, LOL. Just happened to look at the phone, and I saw the notification. Ooh, well hopefully you saw this notification right away too, because I really love the stories for this episode, and hey, you also got your comment featured, so that's kind of cool. Hey there, Tabitha. Hey, here's a longtime fan, MLayQS. Great vid, Creepy Fox. Miss you on the outro, though. Stay well. Well, hey, MLayQS. I'm back, just like I mentioned. It's good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Bo, another great video. So glad this came out. I needed something to listen to while I finish my computer programming. Ooh, that's actually pretty cool. Thank you, Creepy Fox. Hope you're doing well through these rough times. I'm hanging in there, Bo. I'm hanging in there. And the good thing is, I'm working on videos. I really do love the artwork that every video comes out with, and the amazing stories. Yeah, that's the cool thing, is lately, I feel like you guys have been doing a really awesome job with the submissions. Like, together, we've been giving everybody some really awesome experiences. Now I'm just like, I'm so proud of everyone. You know, the fact that this is a collaborative work between myself, who narrates the stories, all of you who provide them. We've been doing an awesome job. Let's keep it going for the rest of 2020. Ooh, nice. Here we have a comment from Kyle. Please do my comment at the end of the video. Well, guess what, Kyle? Your comment made it in the video. And I just wanted to say, personally, thanks for watching, thanks for leaving the comment, and I look forward to seeing you for more future uploads. And then last but least, ooh, nice, another channel member. Less than 3 heart emoji. Well, less than 3 heart emoji back to you as well, Zombie Mama. Thanks for the love and thanks for watching. I appreciate you. And then last but least, I just wanted to go ahead and update you with the schedule next week. There may or may not be, I'm going to see, but there may only be one video next week. The reason why is Monday the 13th is my 28th birthday, which means that this weekend, I'm most likely going to use it to relax and take a break. So that means there will most likely just be one video. But the good thing is it's going to probably be about an hour-long episode. That way you're not missing too much. And then next week, we'll once again go back to the 2 uploads. That way, you're not missing too much. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I'm going to keep zooming in and zooming out. No, I'm not going to do that. Thank you so much for watching. This is going on longer than it needs to. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. I love you all so much. And until then, take care and have yourselves an amazing day.